Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back. It's Sunday. It's almost the end of the week, and Bitcoin has broken 60k. We have a new all-time high. So for everyone who kept confidence, congratulations. I'm personally very happy that we've seen some strength over the weekend. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin, ETH, and I'm going to have a little look with you guys at Utrust. I posted it on Twitter, and it's been performing really well against Bitcoin. So it's, I don't know, there's maybe some nice alpha with Utrust as they are having some momentum. First, your attention for ECOS. They're a regulatory compliant exchange. They're sponsoring this content, so thank you very much, ECOS, for sponsoring. And if you like this content, please consider looking at the link in the description below or in the watermark and sign up and see for yourself if you like the exchange. So thank you very much, ECOS, and guys, please go and have a look. All right, Bitcoin and ETH. I was gonna try and see if I could start out with ETH just to switch things up a little bit, and I haven't been a fan of ETH as of late. It's kind of in no man's land, like I said, and we talked about it last week on Sunday, and then the police drove into my street last week on Wednesday, so I kind of had to run outside and be a little monkey and watch what was going on. But I think on Sunday we discussed that kind of, ETH is not really in any kind of trend. It's kind of stuck between the blue box and the triple line here, which is the resistance. And I think there might be an opportunity soon. And it kind of depends on how vicious Bitcoin is going to get. And Bitcoin has broken out, has not been, as I said on Twitter, dicking around for too long. So I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin, to be honest. At least I'm not going to be conservative in my targets if Bitcoin sees continuation here, because it's following exactly what I was hoping / expecting to happen. And ETH BTC is probably not going to be able to keep up, but there's going to be moments where ETH eventually has to bounce. So there's one level I'm very interested in, must price retrace to it, and that's the dotted black line right here, which is around 0.026. And I don't know, like maybe it's gonna slow bleed into it, maybe it's gonna go into it pretty fast, and it's not a level that I want to blindly bid into. Absolutely not. But what I do think is that this blue box, if we can kind of come down here and then reclaim the blue box, that's where a bullish structure may develop itself. And if Bitcoin is really bullish, I think this is just going to sell off further, maybe even sweep these lows or get all the way down here, which is kind of bad. I wouldn't like to see that, because that kind of means that the overall strength in the market is probably only in Bitcoin, or maybe Bitcoin is going to be bearish then as well. But here right now, it's not a level that I like to be bidding. Maybe this will bounce a little bit. Maybe it's going to reclaim this eventually, but we have this trend line here, this channel, and it kind of reclaimed it for a brief moment, but it has rejected it. So there is, I think this is not looking bullish. And for me to become bullish, this, a huge wick down here and then a reclaim back into here, that would make me interested in trying to find some opportunity to maybe long it, depending on how Bitcoin forms. If it sells off further, obviously there's going to be, I think there's going to be some interesting developments once we get down here. So for now, I'm just going to let it cook up for a little bit. Maybe it's going to develop something bullish. Right now, I'm not seeing it. It's not showing a lot of strength. So that's it for ETH, unfortunately. So Bitcoin, it's kind of retracing a little bit of its pump over the weekend. we got clipped by our range level here that we talked about on Wednesday. So if you remember, I kind of see this being a range, and then this is also a range, and this is kind of double of this range, and it's getting rejected pretty cleanly. I think this close was at 61,178, so it's quite, on a high time frame level, that's pretty much at the level. Any acceptance above that level is a bullish development, and that kind of means price is going to open itself up for the next kind of range right here, which is between 61 and 90k roughly. But I don't think it can go to 89 straight away. There's going to be resistance along the way, right? The one thing I do not expect, but never say never, is that we come back down here and then break this. This would be a very bearish development in my opinion. And it wouldn't make sense for price to come back down all the way down. What we do know is we close, so the 12th of March, that's Friday. So we have a little gap on the CME futures, and I mean, it's not uncommon to expect for price to close that gap, or for price to come back to where we closed the week on the CME futures prior to the market's reopening. And the other option, quite obviously, would be, so this is the hourly close on CME. So that's around 57, 58. And right now price is at 59,700-ish. So if we consider a little bit of a premium that's usually on CME futures, that kind of means that, well, let's say we open at current prices, which, there's still some time left before CME futures open again. But, let's say we gap up here. So if price doesn't come back down before the open, then, there's a little bit of a gap here. It doesn't have to close it. Like what we've seen in the past, that we could have like a breakaway gap, right? So it opens here, everyone expects it to come back down here, it doesn't, and it just, moons to, I don't know, 70k, and everyone keeps talking about the gap down here. Usually it will fill them, right? That's kind of, you can expect for it to fill. Does it have to fill entirely? No. For example, here we gapped, kind of came back into the little gap that was left behind, didn't completely fill it. Let's see if we have any other gaps. Well, there's a gap here which filled, huge gap here that filled immediately, but then again, like you have this breakaway gap that never filled, and quite arguably might actually never fill in the future. Most gaps fill, but not always. And for example, you have this kind of gap, this kind of gap, and the way I theorize it is that this gap is within, is within this range right here. So there is history. Doesn't, it leaves a little bit of inefficiency right here, but there is history here. So there has been development around the level. So these kind of gaps are way more likely to fill, which in this case didn't, but for example, in this case filled quite straight away, within 12 hours. So, that's kind of the idea of what's going to happen here with that gap. So, and because this right here is at the resistance here, or it already kind of took out the high. So any stops that were residing around this level were taken out. It might become a breakaway gap, especially considering that, you know, there's been a little bit of a compression around here. So I don't know. Let's put it different, in a different perspective, and just say that we could come back down into the level. We could even like go through it, even go a little bit lower, maybe as far as 52, but that would be very surprising in my opinion. So probably the lowest I can see us go is 54, 55, and arguably we just, you know, test the breakout level and continue, or we just leave the gap behind, which I don't know, like if Bitcoin is really bullish, it rarely actually does give such a perfect retest. So ideally we don't see it happen. In my opinion, to be very, you know, like the most bullish is that it just doesn't fill. Target to me, I don't know, like I've been adding exposure on the way up, and from here on I'll be reducing exposure. I think that we have this kind of rising wedge, and it's going to be very interesting how that's going to play out. If we break the upper side of it, that's going to, you know, there's going to be a lot of people at the wrong side of the bet. So if we consider this range, pull it halfway, I don't know, get the center of it, it's at 74ish. I'm always going to be conservative with my target. So 69 to 73 makes a lot of sense, but this is like the middle of the range. So depending on how this week develops, let's see, what's Friday? Friday is the 19th. So that's a key date, in my opinion. I think there's some expiries on options, and as you can see, it has some kind of like, you know, we put the 19th of March here. If our trajectory is up here, we're going to be interacting with this diagonal, with this horizontal, this horizontal. This is going to be key interactive moment at the end of this week, and then weekend price action, weekend flow is going to probably determine if we see continuation into the week after the coming week towards the top of this. You know, if you want to have a bearish scenario, which is quite possible, but I do think that we're reaching escape velocity and getting to, you know, steeper price action than we've seen so far in this bull run, then you'd see a big fat correction here, and then back down here, lose the level, and then I don't know, we're gonna be correcting for quite a bit of time. In my opinion, I'm not expecting it, but you have to be realistic that everything is always possible. All right. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, things are moving pretty quickly, so that's kind of nice. Usually I try to make like a high time frame overview of what I think is happening, and now things are moving pretty fast. So I don't know, be open to the idea that price is going to come down and retest this. Preferably, I don't see us going down too far, but it's not going to make me bearish per se. Everything I said in the previous video still stands, and it would be, you know, it would be really nice if we kind of have a little bit of a puke or just jump around here and then make a new high. If we make a new high here, that's I think that's, you know, a pretty convincing signal that we're gonna be going to the red lines here, into this diagonal, dick around for a little bit, shake a lot of people out. I think that's it. 15 minutes in, 14 and a half. I hope it makes sense. Maybe I'm going to be super wrong and this is the top and we're going to be selling off. So, you know, if that happens, I'm sorry already. You know, stay safe. Peace.